Welcome, everyone, to another edition of c to c. Our chief today, President of the Americas for NTT Cloud Communications Division, Mr. Scott McMaster. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Always great to speak to Telarus, and looking forward to the dialogue today.
All right, so let's jump right in. First of all, the NTT name. I think a lot of people
Yep.
look at the NTT name and it says global network, which is not what we're talking about. It was specifically cloud communications, right?
Correct. Yeah. So we are the Cloud Communications Division of NTT. So very clear what we do. NTT is a big brand. It's got a lot of core competency, but the Cloud Communication Division basically focuses on just that, cloud communications. And I'm sure we'll drill into that a little bit further in this discussion.
Well, yeah, you know what? Let's jump in right now because there are a lot of partners selling UC right now. It's at a fever pitch. What is a differentiator? Don't think a lot of the partners understand the offering there, but why would they deviate from their muscle memory right now that they've got and consider NTT for their UC?
Yeah, I think everybody's seen in the marketplace what has happened with COVID. I mean, the rate of transformation is just accelerated. What enterprises thought they were going to do in 2 years is taking months. And with that, we're seeing a substantial shift from on-premise to the cloud. We're seeing a substantial shift with the adoption of Microsoft Teams as the platform for all of the communication and collaboration modalities that an enterprise would use. And this is where the Cloud Communications Division really, generates value for our customers. It's not just about here's a license, go away and use it. Shifting from a multi-siloed environment from communication tools to a single application, moving from on-premise infrastructure to the cloud, it requires so much more than just here's a username and a password. Log in, have at it, you'll make it work. It's not as easy as that. You've got this concept of organizational change management, getting all the different personas within an organization to really adopt teams, not just from communications, but how you work differently. What are the different workloads? And then you've also got, well, how am I going to use this as a full communication platform? You need to bring in SIP services. You need to bring in calling plans. And this is where NTT Cloud Communication really brings our IP into that entire solution. So if you're an organization now and you've got on-premise infrastructure, you're using one tool for meetings, another tool for IM and presence, you're using another solution for document sharing, this is where you can consolidate everything down to a single application, and you can work with us to deploy it, roll it out. We bring in our call plans, and you really offer that around the world as one solution. And so that's why organization comes to the Cloud Communication Division, because it's not just servicing a single market, it's servicing the global market. So you can really deliver the solution to the edge and really receive the maximum return on investment that you're looking for as an enterprise.
Okay, so you talked about a couple things there. Number one being global. So global accounts are welcome. You specialize in those, but also pulling in the different pieces, these different elements of IM messaging, everything else. How does that differ from some of the others? Do you see the other players out there that are competing you as more single-threaded, not offering the breadth that you do?
Yeah, you have to look at not only the technology stack, you have to look at the services around it. How do you support it? You have to look at the voice workloads that are needed to really make that application deliver the benefits to the organization. So you have to look beyond the tech, which is important. And we've seen a lot of organizations try and go at this themselves, trying to install on-premise SBCs and gateways, which with NTT Cloud Communications, you just do not need to do. We are already integrated in the cloud with Microsoft, with Cisco. That way, an enterprise can truly move to a 100% cloud solution and really get the value of speed of deployment and just being able to really roll this out at a pace that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do if you've still got to manage on-prem infrastructure, equipment in data centers, etc.
So let's talk about Teams. You mentioned Teams. It's a hot
Yeah.
conversation right now. It comes up in really every conversation that partners are having with their clients as something to consider. Why Microsoft Teams with NTT?
Well, I think if you can read some of the stats, I mean, Microsoft, since the pandemic began, I think the active users of Teams have grown like 900%. At NTT Cloud Comms, we've created a practice around Microsoft Teams. And it comes down again to, you know, Teams is purchased within an EA or within a license. But you've really got to understand how you use it across the different operational workflows in a company. You know, if you're a head of operations, if you're a head of marketing, you know, how do you communicate to clients? How do you communicate internally? You know, it's just different operating workflows that you need to understand and integrate into your business. Otherwise, you're not really getting the full benefit. This is where we understand what to do. We come in, we do Teams readiness assessments, we do voice readiness assessments. We understand your enterprise, not just from the technology, not just from the network, but also from the people. We're a big believer in looking at the persona, the employees first, and the technology second. How do people work? And knowing how to then to train and change the organization based on what Teams can deliver is a big part of really getting the benefit. And then looking at all the different communication modalities. How do you bring endpoints into a Teams meeting? How do you use Teams as a phone system? You know, how do you then bolt on contact center to really service customer experience, customer service? And so this is, you know, if you look at the cloud communication core competency, we wrap all of that around Teams. So it's not just, don't just buy the license through NTT Comms. That's just a small component. It's everything else that we wrap around Teams and that we integrate into Teams that really make it a strong solution to deploy. And we're seeing the uptick in the market as well.
So you got this wraparound value for Teams, which I'm sure agents
Yeah.
appreciate because it's part of the conversation. And if they can create a better Teams offering, then they win. But you also mentioned the integration to contact center. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, as again, the workplace transformation is moving all different workloads to the cloud. So as part of that, you know, you've got to address certain functions within your organization that are receiving calls from customers, you know, and cloud contact centers are a big part to deploying a cloud solution around Teams. And so what we do, we will bring in options for a cloud contact center solution that natively integrate into Teams. So again, it's addressing those individual workloads and requirements within an enterprise to not only speak internally, but also to address their business and drive ROI within their business and looking at the company's business outcomes. And so that's why contact center becomes a critical piece in the overall solution that we deliver.
Got it. Great. So let's talk about the channel specifically. We talked a little bit about the product. Tell us about your channel strategy going forward.
Well, the channel strategy has been, you know, front and center for NTT, and before we were NTT, we were called Arcadon, and that's been part of our strategy for a long time. We've shifted that strategy a lot over the last 2 years. We used to be direct, indirect, but now our entire organization is fully indirect, and we invest a lot in the partner and agent community. This is probably the biggest part of our go-to-market strategy today. We've eliminated all the barriers in terms of direct, indirect. So we've got a team of resources now that when an agent brings an opportunity to us, we'll make sure you have an army of people that focuses on that opportunity and helps drive it into the end zone. We're investing a lot in this part of our business. It's critical to our go-to-market strategy. And if you look at our results for the first 6 months of the year, it's actually encouraging to see the traction that we're getting. And it's not just around UCaaS and Teams, it's also extending that to our cloud voice offer and also our digital event offering as well.
That's actually huge, and I can't emphasize that enough, that your channel only, your indirect only strategy eliminates the channel conflict that we typically see in organizations where there's direct, there's indirect, and they bump heads constantly. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we made that decision 2 years ago, and it's a big part to what we do moving forward.
So what do you see in terms of product evolution through the end of this year and into next year? What's around the corner?
You have to deliver to your employees tools that follow you. You know, how do you have all the different communication modalities follow the employee wherever they are, whatever device they're using? So we're, you know, for us, it's just about how do we deliver more calling plans across the globe, across more countries? You know, how do we, and we're going to do this, we're adding 17 more countries into our calling plan offer. So you'll be able to now go to a global organization and just say, listen, here are 43 countries that we can actually deliver cloud-based calling plans with no infrastructure. We've also deployed an offer around Microsoft Teams live events. A lot of organizations want to use Microsoft Teams live events as a way to address their company internally, but we've got a managed services wrapper around that to be able to make sure that those events are successful. We are very big in the digital event space, and that there's a huge demand in digital events and virtual events today, just because companies have to figure out how to take something that was on site, on premise, and virtualize it, whether it's a trade show, it's an online conference, it's a virtual kickoff, it's a sales kickoff. And the demand in that area has just gone through the roof. So we spend a lot of time in that area of our business today, and we're actually going to be coming out with more of a self-service type offer moving forward. So for the organizations that I would say are mature and know how to manage this, a very simple platform and how they can deliver a virtual event, whether that's a single day or multi-day event, by themselves through a subscription model.
Yeah, that's fantastic. While not new to the pipeline, your virtual events offering is something that partners would want to take part in. I think they've seen opportunities. I think they just didn't know where the solution was. And the fact that NTT is unique in that regard should create a conversation with every partner, with the companies they work with who all have sales kickoffs or you know, a kickoff for the year for the entire organization or training events or whatever they are. They've now got an offering in pocket to take advantage of that.
And if you look at it today, I mean, all organizations today are thinking about, what do I do in Q1 calendar 21? You know, typically you'd have all these sales kickoffs that are going to take place in Orlando or Vegas or somewhere else. And now every organization is trying to figure out, well, what do I do? How do I execute this? You know, and the beautiful part of the platform is that you're literally just replicating what you would typically do on site, but in the cloud, but you're doing it in a way where you can expand your audience because you're not limited in terms of who flies in. You can still have all your sponsors and partners come into that virtual environment. You can deliver richer content across the platform over the 1, 2, or 3 day event. And it just provides so much flexibility, but with a very good, rich experience for the audience. So, you know, this hasn't been something that we've seen come through the partner community much, but every organization is thinking about, how do I execute something that I typically did in person or on site at a hotel? And this is where we're seeing a strong demand come through to our business.
Yeah, I think that's great news for partners to have an additional product in their pocket. So, Scott, great information. We talked about Microsoft Teams application. We didn't talk much about WebEx and the value you can add around that, but I think the hot conversation right now is Teams. Talked a little bit about virtual events. Just to close it out, now that you're indirect only, there's no channel conflict, you're all about partners and seeing what these partners are doing and some not doing. What's your advice to a partner who's just starting out their business or to a veteran who's been doing it for years?
Listen, I think the message is the same. You know, we are unique in terms of what we do. We provide such strong value around Microsoft and Cisco, and we haven't spent a lot of time around Cisco, but you know, you could look at our offer with Microsoft and bolt it onto Cisco, and it's pretty similar. And our digital event offers, and I think for an agent and a partner out there today, you know, every organization has got a demand across their company, whether it's a marketing buyer, whether it's corporate communication, IT. They're all trying to figure out, how do they operate differently moving forward? What do they deliver to the business from a communication standpoint? And I think if you're willing to just get outside of your comfort zone, look at what we do, engage with our partner people on our side that help train and educate. You could uncover a substantial amount of opportunity in a very short period of time. So there's a lot of demand in the marketplace, and we are positioned very well to take advantage of everything that's happening through workplace transformation today.
All right. Well, Scott, thank you so much for being my guest on the show today. I appreciate you being here and sharing the message. A lot of things that I don't think partners understand right now. Going from Archidin, which was conference calling, to now a full wrapper and value add for teams, inclusive of contact center integration, and then virtual events. There are some new hot products, and being channel only really packages it up nicely. Thank you so much, and thank you to our audience for joining us for this session. Look into NTT Cloud Communications.